Please do not subscribe because my show is going to get better. It's just that, like, if y'all know what's going on in my life, y'all know was why my background look like that, and my show looks super generic. All right, let me see. On Twitter, um, I'm gonna try one more. I want to try 3, but I'm gonna try one more because I don't want people to get spooked. Like they screen, and they probably, I don't know if y'all still hear me talking, but they see a blank stream and they think something is wrong. All right, be right back. I'm trying to get people from LinkedIn in here. Let me see where LinkedIn is. Give me a second, y'all. Whoever here, I'm still here. I'm trying to get people in. And this is where y'all should be happy because, you know, developers do come to this show. And yeah, I might be able to get interviews with them like probably next month. I can't do nothing this month because I'm sorry. One of the topics I want to talk about is what boxing fans did not like about Kings and Fight Night games. And I know there's a couple of my friends online are going type of way, but my thing is don't feel some type of way. You know, for us to talk this out and we can help developers create the game that we want. That's my whole thing. Helping developers make the game that everybody want, not just the online fans and a couple of other fans. All right. What boxing fans did not like about Knockout Kings and Fight Night games? The Knockout Kings and hold up. Before I start, shout out to Don D205. You can catch him on Twitter. You can catch him on on Twitch, and you catch him on Instagram. Don D205 TV on Instagram, but Don D205 on Twitter and in Twitch. And shout out to Leafy, AJ Pax. Let me see. Shout out to Clark's WL3. Shout out to C-Dev, ACTAC. Let me see, I7M. Shout out to everybody that comes in. Please hit the like button. Yeah, we're going to talk about what box fans did not like about Knockout Kings and Fight Night games. And then I'm going to talk about the game development teams that would have made great boxing games. These are the conversations that the community really don't have. They don't talk about which companies can make the best boxing game. And then my thing is we should be pressing them. We should be pressing them. Company be like, well, all these people are pressing us to make a boxing game. Maybe we should try it. But nobody's asking them. They just focus on one company, EA. Now, Steel City is in the is in the realm. They don't really press Steel City. All right, the Knockout Kings and Fight Night series played an enormous role in the history of boxing video games. But for many players, these games created unforgettable memories. They introduced younger fans to legendary champions, delivered impressive graphics for their era, experiment with analog punching, and gave boxing a major presence in sports gaming. And this is the thing that's different about past eras and this era. No disrespect on this era of gamers, but the gamers back in the days, they were willing to learn. Or like when it comes to sports games, they wanted to learn about the legendary boxers or the legendary athletes. But some of this era, they pushed back and said, we don't need the old fighters. We don't need boxers from the old era. We just want the boxers from this era. So you want 10 boxers that you really know about. You might know about 5 or 7. So that's all you want in a boxing game. So you're saying you don't want to learn about the sport. You don't care about the sport. That's what I get when people say that. That's what I get when people say that. We don't need the old fighters. That shows that you're not a boxing fan. You're a fighting game fan. And what you see, like if you see an advertisement for a boxer, that's the boxer you want because, hey, he must be a great fighter, or he must be this, or must be that. I want him in the game so I can use him. But you're not going off of stylistically, what did he do to make him so great, or what people like about him. You don't care about that stuff. You don't care who came before him, that a style that he probably picked up off of and added on to that. Y'all don't care about that. All right. Several entries remain beloved today. Several entries remain beloved today. However, a game can be entertaining, visually impressive, and historically important without fully satisfying hardcore boxing fans. From that perspective, the central question is not whether these games were good. The more important question is how completely did each game represent the techniques, strategies, personalities, history, careers, politics, and unpredictability of professional boxing. How's it going, Card Guys? Shout out to Card Guys 771. Appreciate you coming through the let me see. I said hi. I said, and I give you a shout out. All right. EA repeatedly improved graphics, facial damage, punch control. What's up, Blaster X1? Salute. EA repeatedly improved graphics. I'm talking about, let me see. What Fight Night fans did not like about Knockout Kings and Fight Night games? Even though a lot of people, they get mad about this topic. All right. However, a game can be entertaining, visually impressive, historically important, without fully satisfying hardcore boxing fans. From that perspective, the central question is not whether the game were good. The more important question is how completely did each game represent the technique, strategy, personality, history, career, politics, and unpredictability of professional boxing. This is where the criticism begins. EA repeatedly improved graphics, facial damage, punch controls, license roster, and presentation. Yet, the series rarely developed the complete boxing ecosystem surrounding the action. Most games concentrate on two boxers exchanging punches while leaving large parts of the sport undeveloped. Appreciate you. Card Guy 771 said you are the GOAT. Appreciate you. Hardcore fans were not simply waiting for more famous names. They wanted their knowledge of boxing to matter. They wanted individual styles, realistic footwork, inside fighting, intelligent opponents, meaningful trainers, active rankings, controversial judging, historical rules, career politics, and enough options to shape the game around different interpretations of boxing. Across both franchises, many of the same limitations continue to appear. And when I say both franchises, I'm talking about the Knockout Kings and the Fight Night franchises. They two separate franchises. All right. Career modes were usually ranking ladders built around competitive training exercise. I mean, repetitive, not competitive. Career modes were usually ranking ladders built around repetitive training exercises. Licensed boxers shared too many universal animations and tactical behaviors. Inside fighting and clinching were either absent, shallow, or heavily automated. Referees, judges, trainers, managers, and promoters were mostly decorations. Punch output and knockout frequencies were often unrealistically high. Difficulty settings improve reactions and ratings more than genuine boxing intelligence. Historical legends were placed in modern environments without their authentic eras. Career mode existed mainly to serve the player rather than live independent careers. Career mode opponents exist mainly to serve the player rather than live independent careers. Gameplay sliders and offline customizations were inconsistent. How's it going? I'm Japanese. And you laugh. All right. Gameplay sliders and offline customizations were inconsistent or absent. And it was absent. It just with the Fight Night and the Knockout King series, the sliders came in the champion mode. It came in champion mode because I kept pushing for that. I stayed on EA. I stayed on them. Salute, and how's it going? All right. Boxer identities were built from broad archetypes instead of deep behavioral tendencies. The series never fully combined realism, accessibility, and user choice in one complete game. The series never fully combined realism, accessibility, and user choice in one complete package. Each game contained pieces of the simulation hardcore fans wanted. No game assembled all of those pieces together. No game assembled all those pieces together. And realism, nah. Hybrid, if you want to say it assembled some of it together, you say the hybrid parts of these games. All right. Knockout Kings, 1998. Knockout Kings, 1998. What the game accomplished. The original Knockout Kings were ambitious for its time. It featured licensed professional boxers, multiple weight divisions, created boxers, motion capture, movement, and a career structure that allowed players to rise through the rankings. For a late 1990s console game, that was significant. It presented boxing as a legitimate sports experience rather than a cartoonish brawler. Its roster and presentation immediately gave the game credibility. Players could control recognizable champions and stage fantasy matchups that were impossible in real life. What boxing fans did not like. Championship fights were limited. Championship contests were restricted to 10 rounds rather than the modern 12-round championship distance. That weakened authenticity, particularly for players who wanted realistic pacing, late round fatigue, and championship strategy. There was also no optional 15-round structure for historical matchups. Round length matters because boxing changes as a fight progresses. A 10-round contest requires different pacing from a 12-round championship fight. A 15-round historical contest creates an entirely different stamina and risk management challenge. The career was only a ranking ladder. Let me see. Harvey Fofi, salute. Appreciate you coming through. I didn't know Knockout Kings 1999 was coming out until release date. When my neighbor had me over to play, that was a great surprise. Yeah. Did I get to hold up? Let me see something. Oh, I'm on 1998. I ain't get to 99 yet. So we're gonna see how you feel about my assessment about 1999. Round length mattered because boxing changes as a fight progresses. A 10-round fight requires different paces from a 12-round championship fight. A 15-round historical contest creates an entirely different stamina and risk management challenge. The career was only a ranking ladder. The career mode followed a simple structure: create a boxer, defeat opponents, rise through the rankings, win a championship, and defend until retirement. That gave the player progression, but it did not create a living boxing career. There was no substantial system for amateur development, managers, promoters, contract negotiations, multiple sanctioning organizations, regional championship, mandatory challengers, purse bids, rivalries, weight class changes, injuries, medical suspensions, trainer relationships, promoter disputes, comebacks. The player climbed a list, but the surrounding boxing world barely existed. Training lacked meaningful style development. Career training was extremely basic. It improved statistics, but it did not allow players to build a boxer around a clear technical identity. A true development system should have allowed a boxer to learn specific guards, movement, patterns, signature punches, combinations, preference, and defensive reactions. Instead, training mainly helped numbers increase. 1999 came out in 1998. Yeah, that's backwards. That's how EA do their stuff. All right. Creative boxers were restricted. Creative boxers could not be used freely across every mode. This reduced their value of customization and made it difficult for players to build their own boxing universe. Hardcore fans often wanted to recreate missing champions, create prospects, rebuild historical divisions, or design fictional organizations. A creation suite becomes more or less useful when the characters cannot go everywhere. Boxer individuality was mostly visual. The roster included legendary names, but the technology and design systems were not deep enough to reproduce their individual intelligence. Muhammad Ali could be fast. George Foreman could be powerful. Oscar De La Hoya could have recognizable equipment and appearance. However, ratings alone cannot reproduce a boxer. Ali should control distance, change rhythm, pull away from punches, and circle differently depending on his age. Foreman should use physical framing, heavy jabs, and unusual defensive positioning. De La Hoya should have distinct combination habits and tactical changes depending on the matchup. The original game represented famous boxers through appearance and broad attributes, not through detailed behavioral identities. What could have attracted hardcore fans? The first game needed a deeper boxer identity system, larger career progression, more realistic championship structure, and an unrestricted creation suite. Even when limited hardware, adjustable tendencies could have helped distinguish cautious counterpuncher, aggressive swarmers, body punchers, movers, and clinch-heavy veterans. Boxing fans' verdict. The original Knockout Kings was historically important, but it was closer to a licensed boxing framework than a complete simulation. Its roster promised authenticity. Its roster promised authenticity. That's its career. AI and technical systems could not yet fully deliver. All right. Knockout Kings 2000. Okay. Knockout Kings 2000. What improved? All right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Now I see what you're saying, and I don't know why I keep forgetting that. All right, Knockout Kings 2000. What improved? Knockout Kings 2000 was a major improvement over the original. It introduced better boxing likenesses, more visible facial damage, ring entrances, expanded training, boxer biographies, classic fight content, and longer bout options. The ability to stage 15-round contests was especially valuable for fans interested in historical boxing. The game placed greater emphasis on boxing, presentation, and realism than many fighting games of its era. What boxing fans still dislike? Career progression remained repetitive. This is Fight Night. This is Knockout Kings 2000. All right. Boxing fans still dislike career progression remaining repetitive. The career structure was deeper than the original, but the basic patterns remain. Train, fight, rise in the rankings, win the championship, defend, and retire. The world did not meaningfully evolve around the player. Other boxers did not appear to have complete careers. They did not visually negotiate fights, change trainers, suffer injuries, move through divisions, or build rivalries independent of the player. A hardcore fan wants to feel that the division exists even when the player is not involved. A hardcore fan wants to feel that the division exists even when the player is not involved. And this is one of my things. The world around that boxing, when you go on career mode, it should evolve. We should have that it pops up and says, this fighter is fighting that fighter, or these fighters are fighting on this card. The world, it shows that the world is moving. It's evolving, even though you're not really actively involved in a fight at that point. All right, commentary lacks context. This is Knockout Kings 2000. Commentary lacked context. Commentary could call the action, but it rarely provided the type of information boxing fans expected from a real broadcast. There was little discussion of previous fights, opponent history, styles, strategic adjustments, championship significance, scorecard possibilities, injuries, rivalries, career momentum. And I know a lot of y'all said they couldn't do that back then. Stop it. No, they could do all of that. They didn't want to do it, or if you're not going to ask for it, you're not saying nothing, why add it? They could do this. Back then, they could do more than what y'all keep giving them credit for or making excuses for. The commentary responds to punches, but it did not consistently tell the story of the fight. This is Knockout Kings 2000. Movement remained constrained. The game contained an impressive number of techniques for its time, yet movement was still heavily structured around entering range and exchanging combinations. It could not fully represent ring cutting, lateral trapping, half step, pull steps, pivots, retreating offense, southpaw positioning, rope escapes, lead foot control, balance during punches, Hardcore boxing fans understand that many fights are decided by positioning before the punches are thrown. Many hardcore boxing fans understand that many fights are decided by positioning before the punches are thrown. Styles were broad rather than personal. Styles were broad rather than personal. The game could distinguish between speed, power, and general fighting styles, but two pressure boxers still tend to feel more alike than they should. Two pressure boxers still tended to feel more alike than they should. Joe Frazier, Roberto Duran, and Julio Cesar Chavez were all pressure boxers, but they did not apply pressure in the same way. Facts. Frazier used rhythmic upper body movement and a devastating left hook. Duran manipulated guards and fought with extraordinary inside craft. Chavez cut the ring methodically and broke opponents down with compact combinations. A true simulation needs to capture those differences. What could have attracted hardcore fans? The game needed boxer-specific movement, detailed offense, defensive tendencies, adaptive corner advice, and a more active career universe. Classic fights also could have become interactive with history lessons, with accurate rules, venues, equipment, and commentary. Boxing fan verdict on Knockout Kings 2000 was one of the stronger early attempts at simulation. Its realism, however, came mostly from rules, presentation, and roster depth, rather than a complete behavioral model of boxing. All right, now we get into Knockout Kings 2001. What's up, boxing champions? You came in here too fast because I didn't get to Fight Night Round 3 and Fight Night Round 4. I'm going through the Knockout Kings and the Fight Nights. What fans did not like about the game. But salute boxing champions. All right, let me see. Knockout Kings 2001. What it did well. Knockout Kings 2001 remains one of the most interesting entries because it included features that later boxing games abandoned. Knockout Kings 2001 remains one of the most interesting entries because it included features that later boxing games abandoned. Depending on the platform, the game offered commentary and historical boxers, licensed women's boxers, recognizable referees, commentary, fantasy matchups, career mode, CPU versus CPU contests, the inclusion of women boxers such as Christy Martin, Mia St. John, Lucia Riker. I've been begging her to be in the game. I've been begging all the companies that I been talking to, begging for her to be in the game. Let me see. Oh no, I'm right on time then. Let me see. Lucia Riker gave the game a broader. All the women boxing game gave the game a broader representation of boxers than many later releases. CPU versus CPU was also valuable because it allowed players to test matchups, observe AI behavior, and use the game as a boxing sandbox. What boxing fans disliked? What boxing fans did not like? Not what gamers, not arcade fighting fans. What boxing fans disliked? The boxing remained too mechanical. The gameplay was still heavily based on blocking, punching, and responding to predictable opens. Real boxing is not merely block and attack, return a combination, and repeat. It evolves, fence, rhythm changes, distance manipulation, positioning, hand fighting. I know a lot of y'all saying, what is hand fighting? Look it up. Traps, pace control, clinching, psychological pressure, tactical deception. The game contains strategy, but the exchanges did not always feel organic. Movement was too slow. Circling, evading, and repositioning could feel sluggish. That was a major problem for representing outboxers, mobile counterpunchers, and defensive specialists. A boxer should not feel trapped simply because the game cannot process subtle or rapid foot movement. Knockout Kings could be too easy. Some players found that opponents were stopped too quickly. When knockouts became too common, the game loses many important dimensions of boxing. Decision victories, tactical 12-round contests, late comebacks, body shot investments, protecting a lead, fighting through adversity, close scorecards, championship pacing. Boxing lacks trademark identity. Boxers lack trademark identity. The licensed boxers look recognizable, but many did not consistently display their real life habits or tactical personalities. A boxer can have the correct face, trunks, and ratings while still behaving incorrectly. This sounds a little bit like Undisputed. That is one of the most important lessons for sports game design. Visual authenticity is not the same as behavioral authenticity. Yeah, I know I don't like that word. All right. Career replay value was limited. Career replay value was limited. The career required fighting through a lengthy sequence of opponents, but there were not enough meaningful events between fights to make repeated careers feel different. There was no strong system for matchmaking, politics, rivalries, stable challenges, contract disputes, injuries, or promotional choices. What could have attracted hardcore boxing fans? The game already had a promising feature foundation. It could have become more appealing to hardcore fans with faster and more responsive footwork, deep CPU for CPU customization, boxer-specific tendencies, better knockout frequency controls, multiple career paths, meaningful women divisions, edible rankings, realistic judges and referees. Boxing fan verdict. Knockout Kings 2001 may have been one of the most feature-conscious entries in the early series. Its greatest weakness was the actual boxing still felt too mechanical and insufficiently individualized. All right, Knockout Kings 2002. I'm not gonna go too deep in Knockout Kings 2. I'm gonna just jump into the Fight Night series because I don't want to drag this on too much because a lot of y'all gonna start getting bored. All right, Knockout Kings 2002. What improved? Knockout Kings 2002 introduced a new engine, increased mobility, and an analog evasion system. Players could lean, duck, move, attack the body more naturally. The game also reduced the importance of visible health meters, encouraged players to observe physical damage and behavior. It was arguably more fluent entry and is arguably the most fluid entry in the Knockout Kings era. What boxing fans dislike? The career was extremely short. The created boxer career consisted of only 15 fights. For a boxing fan, 15 bouts barely established a professional career. Many real boxers spend their long, simple development before reaching championship level. A complete career could have included amateur fights, Golden Glove tournaments, Olympic qualifications, development opportunity, regional championships, ranking fights, eliminators, championship opportunities, defenses, unifications, weight class movement, decline, retirement, comebacks, the career ended before many realistic careers were truly beginning. Only a few broad divisions were represented. The game concentrated mainly on lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight. That included much of boxing natural structure. And it's a game that I know of that I'm not going to say nothing about that was going to put in 3 or 4 weight classes. It's a game that I know about that was going to put in 3 or 4 weight classes. They literally asked me. I said, nah, man, don't do that. Don't do that. Do not do that. All right. That included much of boxing natural structure. Boxing divisions are not arbitrary. They produce distinct styles, boxing types, pacing, and tactical problems. Compressing the sport into 3 broad categories, limited authenticity and roster variety. Too much of the roster was fictional. Fictional boxers can be useful. They can populate divisions. And that's why they had the MMA fighters in the game, to the people that don't know. That's why they in the early, when they, with the ESBC, and they said, we're going to have these characters in there, they were trying to fill out the roster for the publishers and investors to see that they had a full roster. Because they didn't populate, they didn't put them in the game at all. It just was a visual thing. Let me see. Clinching was absent. Clinching was absent in Fight Night 2002. Clinching was absent in Fight Night 2002. The lack of proper clinching was one of the game's biggest technical shortcomings. Clinching is not simply a desperate attempt to stop action. It can be used to survive after being hurt. A lot of people don't know that. That's why when people be saying, we don't need clinching in the game. We don't need clinching in the game. Because for one, y'all don't know how to stop a person from clinching. And 2, y'all don't know what clinching is really, really for. Person get hurt, they clinch. People clinch to weigh the person down that they're fighting, to disrupt their flow. But a lot of y'all want an arcade game. What game doesn't have clinching in it? Arcade games. All right. Clinching is not simply a desperate attempt to stop action. It can be used to survive after being hurt, smother a puncher, control the opponent's arms, disrupt rhythm, create inside positioning, lean on a tired opponent, turn an opponent. Turn an opponent. You clinch them and you turn them. You might want to turn him into the rope so you could fight him on. He's on the rope and you're punching on him. Force a referee decision. Yeah. People don't know how important clinching is. Without clinching, many boxing styles could not be represented accurately. Let's not forget, you can also clinch just to frustrate them. Exactly. And you know what? That's probably the people that keep saying we don't need clinching in the game. That's probably the people that saying we don't need clinching in the game. Let me see. Punch output was excessive. Punch output was excessive. Boxers could throw unrealistic high numbers of punches without suffering the proper consequences. Difficulty settings often change how many punches opponents threw and blocked rather than making them tactically smarter. A harder opponent could not merely become faster or more active. It should and it should identify patterns, manage distance, change strategies, and exploit weaknesses. Knockdowns were exaggerated. Knockdowns was exaggerated. That's why a lot of people like certain games. That's why some people like certain games. Knockdowns were exaggerated. Are there in real boxing exaggerated boxes? Yes. Knockdowns sometimes, yes. Knock Knockdowns animation were often dramatic and entertaining, but not always believable. A realistic system will consider punch direction, balance, momentum, fatigue, awareness, foot positioning, collision location, the boxer physical conditioning. Not every hard puncher should produce the same theatrical fall. Commentary and interests remain shallow. Commentary and interests, I don't know what's going on, remain shallow. The broadcast presentation lacked enough personality, variation, and historical context to maintain long-term immersion. What could have attracted hardcore fans? What could attract the hardcore fan? The improved movement could have served as the foundation for cutting, ring cutting, stance-specific footwork, organic clinching, inside fighting, detailed fatigue, balance punching, longer careers, additional divisions, adaptive AI. Boxing fan verdicts. Knockout Kings 2002 had one of the better movement foundations of its era, but its 15-fight career, restricted divisions, and missing clinch system prevented it from becoming a complete simulation. Let me see. Hold up. I think I'm gonna skip 2003, and yeah, I think I'm gonna skip 2003. Y'all can find this on my blog, on my blog that I write. All right, Fight Night 2004. Let me see, clinching and wrestling inside to wear out an opponent quicker and take him off his game plan. Andre Ward, exactly. Bernard Hopkins, John Ruiz. When you think about when I think about clinching, I think about John Ruiz. Didn't he beat Holyfield by clinching? I forget. He beat somebody that we didn't think he should have beat. I fought John Ruiz's brother in the amateurs. Let me see. What's up, Lamont Davis? Appreciate you, brother, for coming through. Salute. Let me see. All right, Fight Night 2004. What changed? Fight Night 2004 restarted EA boxing design around total punch control. Let me see something, because my cousin, he blocking my screen. I can't do nothing right now. All right. The Fight Night 2004 restarted EA boxing design around total punch control. The right analog stick made punches feel more physical and deliberate. Players could control the stick to produce different punches, create a stronger connection between controller movement and boxer hands, and the boxer hands. All right. The game also delivered improved graphics, dramatic knockdowns, and more modern presentation. What boxing fans dislike? What boxing fans dislike? Clinching was removed. They never put it back in from the past games. All right. This is one of the game's most serious realism failures. The game introduced a new control system while removing one of boxing's foundational defensive and tactical tools. Without clinching, survive. Pressure fighters could not smother punches. Inside fighters could not battle for position. Veterans could not disrupt an opponent's rhythm. Referees could not judge excessive holding. Physical strength had less tactical meaning. The game looked more realistic while representing less of boxing physical interactions. Licensed boxers could lose their authentic abilities in career mode. Established champions could enter career mode without their correct physical attributes and had to be rebuilt through training. That made little sense. A licensed Roy Jones Jr. should begin with Roy Jones Jr.'s speed, reflexes, and movement. A career mode should model aging and development, but it should not erase their identity of an established boxer. Training became repetitive. The career depended heavily on a small collection of training mini games. Those exercises helped teach controls, but repeating them throughout a long career became tedious. Training should have evolved. Sparring partners selected for specific tactics, preparation, conditioning choices, weight management, injury prevention, trainer chemistry, film study. We need film study in a boxing game, Steel City. Recovery, risk versus reward, Steel City. Risk versus reward. Me and Ash Habib, we had this discussion. And if anybody on the team that was not there when we talked, we talked about risk versus reward. We talked about tactical boxing. We talked about that. But somebody stepped in the studio and changed his mind. And Ash said he's going back to his original, what he wanted to put in the game originally. So we will see. We will see. All right, instead of training functional mainly as a method of earning attribute points. Forced retirement was anticlimactic. I hated that. Forced retirement was anticlimactic. The career automatically ended at age 40. There was no meaningful choice about continuing, retiring, or attempting a comeback. There was also no detailed decline system, showing how different abilities deteriorated different at different rates. Some boxers lost speed first, others lost stamina, reflexes, or punch resistance. A few maintain power long after their movement declines. A few maintain power after their movement declines. Someone like George Foreman, Mike Tyson, they still could have their power. A deeper aging system would have made late career decision meaningful. Mode selection was limited. Mode selection was limited. Reminds me of a modern game. Outside exhibitions, career, and online competition, the game offered little for players' interest in managing a larger boxing world. There was no universe mode. Promoter mode, historical career, tournament ecosystem, broadcast mode, full CPU versus CPU sandbox, edible ranking structure. Generic opponent filled the career. Generic opponents filled the career. Players fought through many generic opponents before reaching the most recognizable licensed boxers. Fictional opponents were not inherently a problem. The issue was that they lacked enough personality, history, or career development to feel like meaningful rivalries. Analog punch divided players. Analog punching divided players. Total punch control was innovative, but some players disliked being pushed away from traditional buttons. Stick gestures could also misread hooks and uppercuts during fast combinations. The best solution, let me see, the best solution would have been equal support for multiple control schemes rather than forcing one design philosophy upon the entire audience. Give me a second, y'all. I don't know what does that. All right. Yeah, but I always said that we shouldn't be forced to fight a certain way. I mean, with certain control schemes, with like just the sticks. We shouldn't be forced to do that. Because in real life, that's like telling a boxer, hey, you can't punch me this way or that way. We should be able to set up our own control scheme. No matter if you feel that it's cheating or not, it's not cheating. It's somebody using what they feel comfortable with using. It's just like real boxing. The multiple control schemes rather than, the best solution would have been equal support for multiple control schemes rather than forcing one design philosophy onto the entire audience. What could have attracted hardcore fans? What could have attracted hardcore fans? The new punch controls needed to be connected to foot positioning, balance, weight transfer, stance, fatigue, reach, defensive responsibility, individual techniques. A boxer should not throw every punch with equal effectiveness from every position. Boxing fan verdict. Fight Night 2004 evolutionized punch control, but it regressed in several important boxing eras. The absence of clinching in the shallow career prevented it from becoming a complete simulation. All right, Fight Night Round 2. I ain't get to what we about to get to. All right, Fight Night Round 2. What improved? Fight Night Round 2 restored clinching and introduced several valuable systems. It added referee stoppages, a cutman system, a amateur progression, trainers, equipment, expanded creation options, interest customization. I forgot about that. We had interest customization. I forgot. You know, I was writing this. I was like, hold up. We had interest customization. Why? Fight Night Round, what's that? Fight Night Round 2. We had like Steel City and Fight Night Champion had games behind it. We had interests. Let me see. What was interested customization? All right. Interest. Like I know I'm saying the word interest, like when you enter this studio. Yo, don't start trolling me, boxing champion. All right, let me see. Interest customization, more visible career development. Yeah. All right. These additions suggested that the series was beginning to represent the world surrounding the fight. What boxing fans dislike? Fights ended too quickly. Knockouts remain heavily emphasized. And many fights rarely reach the scorecards. That reduced the importance of judges, round management, body attacks, long-term fatigue, tactical adjustments, protecting a lead, late round rallies, championship pacing. A boxing game should allow dramatic knockouts, but it should not make them the expected conclusion of every important fight. Haymakers became special attacks. Haymakers became special attacks. Haymakers were satisfying to land, but they introduced players to search for exaggerated power moments rather than construct realistic offense. Real punching power comes from timing, accuracy, balance, weight transfer, positioning, leverage, the opponent movement, the punch not being seen. It should not feel like activating a special attack category. Training remained incomplete. Training modes could be confusing and did not provide enough freedom for players to practice naturally. A proper sparring system should have allowed players to select partners based on style and prepare for special tactical problems. Difficulty increased aggression rather than intelligence. Difficulty increased aggression rather than intelligence. Early opponents could often be overwhelmed easy. Later opponents became much more aggressive and durable. This created difficulty, but not always believable development. A more intelligent opponent should recognize repeated combinations, adjust to body punching, change distance, protect an injury, attack a weakness, manage stamina, avoid predictable counters, alter strategies between rounds. AI self-preservation was limited. AI self-preservation was limited. Some opponents continue advancing after absorbing several severe punishment. Real boxers respond differently when hurt. Some hold, some retreat, some exchange recklessly, some freeze, some become more defensive. These reactions should be tied to personality and experience. Trainers were mainly bonuses. Trainers and cutmans existed, but they were operated largely as statistical modifiers. A true trainer system should influence style development, tactical planning, advice, confidence, recovery, career decision, fight chemistry, career changes, large-term progression, online timing. Online timing could undermine the control. Online timing could undermine the controls. Input delay was especially demanding because the game depended on precise analog movement and defense timing. What could have attracted hardcore boxing fans? The restored clinching and corner system could have become much more deeper. Hardcore fans needed organic inside fighting, trainer personalities, realistic knockouts, and fights that reach decisions without feeling eventful. Boxing fans' verdict. Round 2 added several important boxing systems, but its knockout-heavy structure and oversized haymakers pushed the experience towards cinematic combat rather than measured simulation. Fight Night Round 3. This is one of the fans' favorite. Fight Night Round 3. What it did well. Fight Night Round 3 delivered landmark graphics, detailed facial damage, strong atmosphere. It also introduced customizable base, punch, and block styles. ESPN classic content attempting to connect the game with boxing history. I love this when it was in the game. All right. For many players, the presentation remained one of the series' greatest achievement. What boxing fans disliked. Don't start throwing tomatoes at the screen. Or don't start tearing up your keyboard. What boxing fans dislike? Reckless volume could still win. Reckless volume could still win. Players could often concede by throwing players could often succeed by throwing large number of punches. That weakens the importance of balance, defense, punch selection, accuracy, ring positioning, total position, A realistic boxing game should punish a boxer for missing repeatedly, becoming predictable, or throwing without defensive responsibility. Parrying became overpowering. And this is me and Beast, we were kind of had a dispute about this because he was saying, because sometimes, some of the people that I talk to, they don't want certain things in the game, even if it's realistic, because it disrupts the style that they like to play. Certain people don't want things in a game because it disrupts the style that they like to play and they're successful at. Parrying is a thing in boxing. And by saying it shouldn't be in the game, then you don't really want an authentic boxing game. When you don't want things in a boxing game that people do in real life, that means you don't want an authentic boxing game. No matter what anybody feels or say, that's what realism is. Parrying is a part of boxing. Does every boxer do it? No. But it's a part of boxing. Should every boxer be able to do it? Yes, if that's what you choose to do. If that's what you choose to do. Parries frequently create exaggerated vulnerabilities windows that left the attack boxer temporarily helpless. And that was on point. I mean, that was intentional what EA did. They said it. They said it. They did that intentionally. I think it seemed like, and I called them out on this, they added certain things and made it in a way that people will say they don't want it because that's what they didn't want. They make it seem overpowered. They make it this and that. They put certain things in a game and you comment on it and say, hey, see, a lot of people didn't even want that in the game. No, they wanted it represented correctly in the game. And I made that distinction. I said, yo, parrying is I used to tell the developers, parrying is a part of boxing, but y'all put it in there wrong. It was overpowered. Let me see. All right. Parrying frequently created exaggerated vulnerability windows that left the attacking boxer temporarily helpless. I called them on that. This encouraged players to bait a punch, activate the parry response, and land a major counter. That made me stop playing that game immediately. I said, hold on, let me see how many times people are going to do that. They kept doing that. I said, I'm not playing it. People kept playing it. That's what about Fight Night round 3 that I did not like. I like the game overall if I'm playing like by myself, but when I play online, nah. This encouraged players to bait a punch, activate the parry response, and land a major counter. Real parries is more subtle. It includes catching, redirecting, shoulder deflection, glove tapping, forearm blocking, small positioning adjustments. It should not always produce a dramatic freeze state. I called them on that immediately. A lot of people didn't even know what was going on. They thought, hey, they said, what's going on? I said, yo, they put that in there. They put that in there intentionally. It's a freeze. And they tried to act like they didn't know what it was. Impact punches felt artificial. Flash knockouts and stun punches were treated as special mechanics rather than natural results of the physics and power, the boxer conditioning. This is Fight Night round 3. Fight Night round 3. All right. Not always produce a dramatic freeze state. All right. Impact punches felt artificial. Flash knockouts and stomp punches were treated as special mechanics rather than natural results of the physics and boxer conditioning. A flash knockdown should emerge from timing, balance, awareness, and punch placement and vulnerability. All right. ESPN Classic lack historical authenticity. The historical mode was was an excellent idea, but a major missed opportunity. Classic fights still use modern presentation, elements, lighting, and advertising. The mode did not consistently this mode did not consistently recreate the actual atmosphere of the historical events. A genuine historic mode needs accurate arenas, correct rules, period gloves, the gloves of that period, of that era, era-specific punches, historical commentary, appropriate championship structures, correct round control, correct round total, total champion, period broadcast presentation. I'll be reading two. That's why I got to start wearing my glasses. I'll be reading two lines at the same time. Multiple career visions of boxers. Multiple career versions of boxers. A young version of a boxer should not perform exactly like the older version. And boxer styles changes as they get older. Some boxers don't fight the same way. They change up. To be fair, a lot of people don't know what a parry is, but yeah, that's true. And that's the thing while practice mode, and they should tell people it should be a mode where people learn what a parry is and what it's used for. All right. Career progression lost meaningful rankings. Career progression lost meaningful rankings. The career relies heavily on popularity and contracts opportunity rather than a clearly simulated ranking structure. That made the experience feel like a series of loosely connected exhibitions instead of a struggle through professional boxing. Early career was too easy. Experienced players could dominate early opponents without learning the deeper mechanics. Difficulty should come from matchup problems, an opponent's intelligence, not simply stronger attributes later in the career. Advertising damage immersion. Advertising damage immersion. Modern product placement was especially distracting during historical content. Blame Poe for that. They took the idea. Poe didn't get no credit or anything from that. But I pushed hard for, my thing was, with advertisement, it gives them money to sign the boxers. The money from advertisement should have been for signing more boxers and adding more things to the game. Modern boxing placement was especially distracting during historical content. What could have attracted hardcore fans? Hardcore fans wanted ESPN Classic to become a real historical simulation. They also needed parrying, counters, and knockdowns to emerge naturally from the boxing rather than behave like traditional fighting game systems. Fighting game systems. Boxing fan verdict. Round 3 may have been an atmospheric high point of the series. Its parry system, artificial impact punches, and shallow career structure reveal how much of the game still operated like a conventional fighting game. Like a conventional fighting game. All right. Fight night round 4. We at fight night round 4. Had to take a swig for that. What improved? Fight Night Round 4 introduced one of the series' strongest gameplay foundations. Fight Night Round 4 introduced one of the series' strongest gameplay foundations. Its physics-based interaction created more fluid punches, glancing blows, and natural exchanges. Foot movement improvement, and the roster expanded, and legacy mode offered a stronger career structure. The game also featured an amateur tournament and an online world championship. Many boxing fans still believe its movement and punch physics were superior to those of Fight Night Champion. Don't blame me. Listen to what I said before y'all start attacking me. Many boxing fans still believe its movement and punch physics were superior to those of Fight Night Champion. What boxing fans dislike? Punch output remained unrealistic. Players could throw far more punches than real boxers without suffering severe enough consequences. A boxer who threw excessive should experience reduced speed, slow reactions, low accuracy, poor balance, weaker defense, diminishing power, mental fatigue, increased vulnerability. And to the people that watch my show or people that be saying, we need vulnerability in the game, tell the developers what vulnerability mean. Because my thing is, what y'all call vulnerability doesn't make sense. Because y'all keep asking, it sounds like y'all just asking for just saying the word without providing what it means. If I hit you with a lot of body punches, you're becoming vulnerable. Your hands are coming down. Your hands are dropping. You're vulnerable. Because your hands coming down for you to protect your body. I could go upside your head. Hit you with a hook, overhand, short, right hand, anything. Hit you with all that. That's vulnerability. I can hit you on one side of your body and trick you to block that side and hit you on the other side. That's vulnerability. So a lot of y'all keep asking for vulnerability and don't know what vulnerability means. Yes, tiredness is a part of vulnerability. Lack of defense is a part of vulnerability. Being hurt, your eyes swollen, your jaw might be broke or hurting. That's vulnerability. So stop asking for something just because you like the word. A lot of people just like saying the word. We still ain't get vulnerability. What the heck is vulnerability to you? All right. Instead, excessive volume often remains as an effective strategy, partially online. Partially online. Legacy mode was dominated by training. Legacy mode was dominated by training. This is Fight Night Round 4. Career progression depended too heavily on training mini games. Hold on, let me see something. Let me make sure I'm on Fight Night Round 4. Yeah, Fight Night Round 4. All right. Let me see. Legacy mode was dominated by training. Career mode progression depended too heavily on on training mini games. Players could schedule fights farther apart to gain additional training opportunities. But doing so also aids the boxer, which is stupid. I called that out too. This creates a numerical optimization problem rather than a believable boxing career. Progression and aging work against each other. A boxer could rise in the rankings faster than his attributes develop. The player might then encounter opponents with dramatically superior ratings and be encouraged to take easier fights while waiting for statistics to improve. This made matchmaking feel driven by game progression rather than boxing logic. Career communication were lifeless. Communications were lifeless. Emails, notification added presentation but had little consequences. There was no meaningful relationship or negotiation behind them. A promoter's messaging should affect a promoter message should affect contracts. A trainer's warning should affect preparation. A rival's comment should influence interest as a fight. Should influence interest in a fight, excuse me. A medical report should change scheduling. A corner became a bonus menu. A corner became a bonus menu. Between rounds, players earn points on stamina and damage recovery. That worked as a competitive resource system. But it did not represent a real boxing corner. A realistic corner should involve tactical observations, specific instructions, injury assessments, advice, reliability, training personality, emotional communication, cut prioritization, stop decisions. Defense remains simplified. Blocking was divided mainly into broad, high, and low protection. Boxing was divided mainly into high and low protection. That was not enough to represent high guards, low guards, cross-arm defenses, shoulder rolls, forearm frames, catch and shoot systems, elbow shields, protect specific reaction. Boxer specific reaction. Different defense systems should create different strengths, weaknesses, and counter opportunities. Let me see something. I don't corner game. The training coaches give you the right advice pretty consistently. Fight Night Round 4, I don't remember. So I'll take your word from it. I should have watched some videos. Counter windows were artificial. Counter windows were artificial. Slow motion counters states reward timing, but also made successful counters feel like activated gameplay events. Counters should emerge naturally from distance, timing, anticipation, foot positioning, defense techniques, opponent tendencies. Created boxers exploit damaged online players. Let me see. I got a lot of Fight Night Round 4 gameplay videos. Come and check them out. Okay, I will. Created boxers exploit damaged online play. Players could create boxers with extreme reach and use excessive volume to exploit the competitive system. This exposes the difficulty of balanced creation tools without realistic physical limitations. Gameplay sliders were inadequate. Simulation-minded fans needed control over stamina, damage, accuracy, punch output, counter windows, AI behavior, recovery, referee behavior, knockdowns, cuts, corner progression. Without detailed sliders, players were forced to accept EA's balance decisions as the only interpretation of boxing. What could have attracted hardcore fans? Round 4 had perhaps the strongest raw foundation for a realistic boxing simulation. With a deeper stamina defensive system, AI tendencies, career politics, inside fighting, and extensive sliders, it could have become the definitive hardcore boxing game. Boxing fans' verdict. Round 4, remarkably close to building the right foundation. Its physics and movement were impressive, but punch output, simplified defense, and training dominated career progression prevented it from reaching its full potential. And this is what I was hoping they built on. Fight Night Champion. Fight Night Champion. People about to start getting mad at me and sending me sending me letters, sending me DMs. Fight Night Champion. What it did well. And this part in Don D205, that's my guy. That's my guy. So don't get mad at me, Don D. I'm reading from my perspective. Everybody has their own perspective about something. It's just like watching a fight. We both gonna have a different perspective of something. All right, Fight Night Champion delivered the most polished presentation in the series. It featured detailed facial damage, blood, one-punch knockouts, button and analog punching, championship mode, legacy mode, online gyms, online championships, a large roster, cinematic storytelling. The Andre Bishop story gave the game emotional weight. It made it accessible to players who might not normally follow boxing. What boxing fans disliked? What boxing fans disliked? Champion was too scripted. Champion mode was too scripted. And this is something I can say that I know. This was a dry run for Fight Night Champion 2. It wasn't going to be scripted. It was going to be, it was like you could create a boxer or use a boxer. You was going to be able to use them in a story mode. That would have been revolutionary. But they never got to make that game. Champion mode created memorable, dramatic moments, but many fights forced players to follow specific conditioning, conditions. The player might be required to avoid body punches, use only one hand, survive for a set period, fight around a scripted injury, overcome artificial stamina problems, defeat an intentional, exaggerated final opponent. These scenarios worked as storytelling devices, but they often turned boxing into a puzzle or a boss fight. The player was not always free to solve the matchups using boxing knowledge. Legacy modes remain lifeless. Legacy mode returned, but it did not receive the same narrative attention as Andre Bishop's story. The player created career remained centered on train, rest, schedule, and fight. There were few meaningful relationships, rivalries, negotiations, or world events. EA demonstrated that it could create a compelling story, but it did not provide players with enough systems to generate their own stories. Training camp choices were shallow. Weekly activities consumed time but did not create the complexity of a real training camp. Players quickly discovered the most effective routine and repeated it. A real camp should include sparring selection, conditioning choices, tactical work, tactical preparation, weight management, recovery, injuries, trainer chemistry, media obligations, confidence, camp location, opponent changes. Blocking became too automatic. Don't get at me, Don D205. And I know you like this mode, and I'm not getting at you. I'm just speaking in general. Blocking became too automatic. A single defensive input protected both the head and body. That made defense more accessible. That made defense more accessible. But it simplified technical differences between defensive styles. It simplified defensive differences between defensive styles. Hardcore fans wanted distinct systems for high guard, cross arm guard, shoulder roll, long guard, catches, elbow blocking, forearm framing, footwork defense. These systems should affect visibility, stamina, vulnerability, and counter opportunities. Clinching was not organic. Clinching existed, but it was primarily a trigger animation. It was primarily a triggered animation. There were little representation of arm control, underhooks, turning, leaning, punching during partial clinches, smothering, referee warnings, excessive holding penalties, boxer-specific clinching habits, referee and corners lacking judgment. Referee and corners lacking judgment. Referees and corners did not consistently stop fights based on realistic damage, intelligent defense, or long-term danger. Doctors rarely played a meaningful role. Trainers did not possess enough personality or judgment to decide whether their boxer should continue. Important boxer events were missing. The game still lacked detailed representation of accidental head clashes, slips, incorrect knockdown ruling, point deductions, doctor examinations, corner retirements, stand-in stoppages, technical decisions, no contest, disqualifications, controversial judging. These are not minor details. They influence real careers and championship histories. Knockdowns became predictable. Players could often determine whether a boxer was would rise based on the knockdown animation. That removed uncertainty from the count. A better system would use balance, awareness, damage, fatigue, recovery, and boxer traits to determine what happens after the fall. Online systems needed more depth. Online gyms and championships were promising, but they did not grow into a complete online boxing universe. Players could have formed gyms, promotional companies, trainers teams, stables, ranking organizations, custom championships, scheduled cards. What could have attracted hardcore fans? Fight Night Champion needed to apply its storytelling quality to the player-created career. And that was going to happen with Fight Night Champion 2. The game also needed deeper defense, organic clinching, referee personalities, trainer judgment, and a living universe that continued beyond Andre Bishop's story. Boxing fan verdict. Fight Night Champion remains a classic because of its presentation, damage, accessibility, and story. However, it was not the complete boxing simulation that nostalgia sometimes makes it appear to be. It may have been the most polished boxing entertainment package in the series, but it was not necessarily the deepest representation of the sport. What was missing that could have attracted hardcore boxing fans? Looking across every Knockout Kings and Fight Night gang, the missing ingredients was not simply another roster update, graphical improvements, or cinematic modes. Hardcore boxing fans wanted a game that showed boxing as a complete sport, authentic boxer identities. Licensed boxers needed more than recognizable faces and ratings. Every boxer should have possessed detailed tendencies, capabilities, traits, mannerisms, punch, preferences, defensive habits, footwork patterns, risk tolerance, adaptability, fatigue behavior, hurt reactions, clinching tendencies. Muhammad Ali should not merely have a high speed rating. He should move, react, and adjust differently depending on his age and opponent. Joe Frazier should not simply be categorized as a pressure boxer. His rhythm, head movement, left hook, body attack, and physical persistence should define his behavior. Thomas Hearns should control range, establish his jab, and disguise his right hand. Roberto Duran should manipulate guards, work inside and attack during transitions. Boxing styles cannot be reduced to 4 or 5 universal templates. Genuine inside fighting. No game fully represented the technical struggles at close range. Hardcore fans needed the ability to fight for position, trap arms, frame with forearms, turn opponents, smother punches, dig short body shots, create space with the shoulder, lean on tired opponents, hold after being hurt, punch from partial clinches. Without these mechanics, inside fighters, pressure boxers, spoilers, and physically strong veterans could never be represented correctly. Deeper defense. Defense needs to go far beyond blocking high, blocking low, leaning and parrying. Different guards should create different advantages and vulnerabilities. A shoulder roll boxer should defend differently than a high guard boxer. A low guard should control distance while exposing different targets. A cross-arm defense should absorb attacks in a unique way. Defense should have been a technical identity, not a cosmetic animation package. Complete footwork. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Whoa, that thing about the defense is totally wrong too. You're not mentioning the punch variation easily. There's a lot less punch in Fight Night Champion and less defensive options. Yeah, a lot of that stuff is governed by the sliders, but that is there in Fight Night Round 4. All right. Thanks, E-Boxing Champions. Thanks for the corrections, because some of the stuff, because I didn't play the games as much because they start getting a little boring to me. So, and I start thinking about other stuff. Thanks for keeping me up to date with what's going on. All right, complete footwork. Movement improves across the series, but footwork never became the complete strategic system it needed to be. Hardcore fans wanted rain cutting, pivots, lateral escapes, pull steps, half steps, shifts, southpaw positioning, lead foot battles, rope awareness, penalties, momentum-based punching. Punch effectiveness should depend on the boxer's stance, weight transfer, foot placement and balance, intelligent AI. Difficulty should have changed strategy, not merely speed, accuracy, and aggression. CPU boxers need to study patterns. And I know a lot of y'all like, the AI studying patterns. Yes, AI can study patterns. That's what procedural AI does when they make the skeleton or make the frame for a boxer by watching videos of the boxer. AI can watch a full video and gather the mannerisms, the tendencies, the movement, everything of that boxer. And that's what Unreal Engine has. Unity doesn't have it. But they still could have used that and implemented into Unity. All right. CPU boxers need to study patterns, recognize combinations, attack injuries, protect leads, increase urgency when behind, change strategy, set traps, use fence, manage stamina, clinch when hurt, target cuts, adapt to southpaws, fight according to scorecards. A boxer leading after 8 rounds should behave differently from one who desperately needs a knockout. A boxer leading after 8 rounds should behave differently from one who desperately needs a knockout. A living boxing universe. A living boxing universe. A career mode needs to simulate the entire sport rather than only the player. Career modes need to simulate the entire sport rather than only the player. Other boxers should have fought independently, changed rankings, suffered injuries, switched trainers, moved differently, aged, retired, returned, built rivalries, won and lost championships. The game also needed managers, promoters, organizations, contracts, purse bids, mandatory challengers, and television agreements, and replacement opponents. Hardcore fans should have been able to control one boxer, multiple boxers, a gym, a stable, or a promotional company. Trainers and corners with personalities. Let me get a swig, this swig off this water. Okay. Trainers and corners with personalities. Trainers need philosophies, strengths, weakness, and relationships. Corner advice should have reflected what actually occurred during the round. A trainer should recognize when the boxer is being timed, losing the lead foot battle, dropping a hand, backing toward the ropes, ignoring the body, failing to follow the game plan. Trainer chemistry should affect whether the boxer trusts or follows the advice. Human officiating. Judges and referees need individual tendencies. Judges and referees need individual tendencies. Some referees should allow physical inside fighting. Others should separate quickly. Some should issue warnings early. Others should allow more holding or rough tactics. Judges should have different preference regarding clean fighting, clean punching. And this is something else I'm trying to educate the community with, because their thing is they think every referee should be the same. Every judge should be the same. That's not realistic. And to boxing, that is not realistic to boxing. Judges should have different personalities regarding clean punching. I'm about to educate y'all. Effective aggression, defense, ring control. The system should not become random, but it should reflect the uncertainty of real boxing. Respect for boxing history. Legendary boxers need era-specific versions. Young Ali, 1970. Ali and late career Ali should not have identical ratings, movement, and punch resistance. Historical matchups needed. Era-specific rules, correct glove sizes, accurate round totals, historical venues, periodic broadcasts, proper equipment, automatic organizations, era-specific refereeing. A fantasy fight between Jack Johnson and Lennox Lewis should allow the player to choose the era and rules. Extensive sliders and options. This is the part that gets me excited. Extensive sliders and options. No single gameplay balance can satisfy every boxing fan. Players need detailed control over punch speed, power, accuracy, stamina, long-term fatigue, blocking effectiveness, guard deterioration. I know I just messed that all up. Counter damage, knockdowns, recovery, cuts, swelling, referee strictness, clinching, AI aggression, AI adaptability, punch output, judging, aging, career progression. Simulation players could create slower, more tactical fights. Casual players could create faster and more explosive contests. And when I say slower, I'm talking about the arcade speed is different from what a real boxing match should look like. That's what, when we say slower, not a slow boxing match. Because boxing matches can be slow and it can be fast. But we don't want it to be fast all the way through, or hyper fast and stuff like that. Like Victorious Boxer type stuff. Competitive online, all right. Competitive online play could use its own separate balance. Options would not divide the audience. And this is what people be saying. But options would not divide the audience or the fan base. They would allow multiple audience to enjoy the same game. Creation beyond boxers. Creation beyond boxers. Hardcore fans need tools to create an entire boxing world. I'm gonna leave it here because this could go on and on. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Y'all could go on my blog and y'all can find it and y'all can read through it. But I appreciate everybody that came through. Appreciate y'all, man. I'm glad I got 10 people to give me the up, and any developers that come in later and watch this video, please like the video. Y'all names do not show up and show who liked the video and stuff, so y'all can't like the video. Shout out to Don D, 205 again. Shout out to E-Boxing Champions. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Enlightened me on a lot of things. Shout out to, oh yeah, I know who I ain't shout out in a long time. Shout out to my guy, Malky Pablo. Shout out to Lamont Davis. Shout out to, I'm going to give you a shout out again, E-Boxing Champions. Shout out to Harvey Fofi. Shout out to Japanese because you didn't put your name. I can't read Japanese, or you just putting up stuff. All right. Car Guy 771. Shout out to Blaster X1, man. Appreciate it. When you come in, man, it's a treat, man, because you don't usually be in, you always be in the background or watch it later. Carved Debt. Salute. And thanks for showing up. And Clark WL3, salute to you, and salute to AJ Pax. Salute to you, Leafy, again. Salute to Leafy. Salute to AJ, JMMA, and shout out to JX. No, let me see. Jay Shep, excuse me. Shout out to Jay Shep. Jay Shep, man, give me an answer, man. Please let me know something. Say, hey, man, I don't want to by me asking him that. He'd probably get mad at me. Just give me some type of answer. Like, Poe, I don't think it's good for me to ask him. Just at least give me something, man. Because I always look at Jay Shep as the most honest guy in the gaming genre, in this whole universe. But shout out to the whole Wishlist Mafia. Shout out to Papanosis. Shout out to Vlad. Shout out to I did it again. I gotta write a note. But shout out to all of y'all, man. Let me see. Oh yeah, shout out to Ace Move, Liz Quijada. Shout out to y'all, man. I appreciate y'all. And shout out to Mike from Don D Telecast, and shout out to everybody there. And shout out to all of y'all, man. Even shout out to Steel City Interactive. Even though I'm gonna stay on y'all, just like I was on with EA, I'll stay on their back. But because I want the best game and I want y'all to succeed. But shout out to everybody that came and watched the show today, and I appreciate y'all, man. Until the next show, peace. Let me try. Hopefully my banana pudding didn't break in the window, in the freezer. All right, y'all, peace.